Hey guys, David here with yet another computer related video. This time it's on my recently built, I say recently built, but it's been built in August of 2021 Core i5 custom build based around the Core i5-10600K, and if I recall correctly, they were just releasing the 12th gen Core i series at that time. It's a 6-core, 12-thread CPU, as you can see by Task Manager here. Base frequency is 4.10 gigahertz, but it clocks to 4.9 at turbo. Right now it's running at around 4.5 gigahertz. I do have the Intel Extreme tuning utility on here, and I set it to actually push the clocks up to 4.7. I'm sure if I did some tinkering in the BIOS, I could actually get it running at 4.9 all the time. I don't really want to push it too hard considering it's running air cooling at the moment though. It's an H470M DS3H from Gigabyte. Not a bad board for the price that I paid. Two M.2 NVMe slots, one of which is occupied by that 465 gig. It's actually a 500 gig, but due to the way file systems work, Windows reads it as 465. It's a Samsung 980, really quick drive, I believe 3200 megabit a second read and around 3000 write, which is pretty darn quick, especially compared to the older SATA SSDs that usually cap at a little over 500 read and write. And of course we've got two hard drives, which are mechanical, a 1 terabyte Western Digital and a 2 terabyte Seagate for storage and games. Video card is a Asus NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650. It's the Tough Gaming model. I picked that up in April of this year because at the time I was building this system, GPU prices were higher than Willie Nelson, and I didn't really want to pay almost $500, $600 for the video card that's in there right now. I still may eventually upgrade that to a RTX series. It's got 16 gigabytes of Patriot, I believe it's value or something like that. I don't remember the exact model. DDR4 2400. It doesn't show the name of the memory because Speccy doesn't seem to know what it is. And of course, it's running Windows 10. No optical drives in this particular system, as I didn't really need one for it. And my Dell Optiplex 7010 down there has one if I need to rip CDs or DVDs or anything. And of course, a couple older monitors. This one's going to need to be replaced. It's got some weird issues, and I don't know if it's just the cable or the connector. And this one most definitely because of this little blemish. And it's starting to develop lines, which you can just barely see right here by Task Manager and Steam. And of course, we'll go over here so you can actually see. This is a Corsair. I believe it's the 200D Airflow. And of course, it's got an opening on the top so you can mount an all-in-one liquid cooler, or if you're running a custom loop, you can do that as well. It's a deep cool cooler. I don't remember the model, but these are similar to another cooler. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it works really well. It keeps the CPU nice and cool. And of course, the video card's down in here. You can't really see it because it's a little dark. There is a USB-C Type 3.1, regular USB 3 on the rear, two USB 2, a PS2 keyboard and mouse connector. They're combined, unlike older systems where they are separated. Onboard Realtek audio. There is also Intel UHD 630. The graphics output on the motherboard, there's DVI, VGA, HDMI, and DisplayPort. And the 1650 has DVI, DisplayPort, and HDMI. And of course, we're using a DVI to HDMI adapter, which you can see there. For that eMachines 1080p monitor, the Acer one is running off DVI. And then that Sony Bravia is hooked up to the Intel onboard. It's a little dark back here, so you can't really see what's going on, and my phone's running a little warm, so I can't turn on the flash at the moment. I do intend on upgrading to more RAM, and maybe getting myself another NVMe SSD so I can dual boot Linux on this. Like I said, no optical drive, it doesn't need one. I do have the drive cage for this, but it's currently not in the system. I had taken it out thinking I might need the room to fit the graphics card forever ago, but I don't, so I'll have to find the screws and mount that back so I can actually put the drives in the appropriate location instead of having one sitting down on the bottom of the case and one up here and one of the 3.5 or 5.25 bays, sorry, where an optical drive would normally go. I also did have a wireless and Bluetooth 5.0 card in this machine at one point, as I didn't have a cable running to my room where it had been before. Now we're out in the living room, and I'm wired into the gigabit network. All in all, this has been a really solid machine for nearly a year now, a little bit more than a month, and I'll have had this for a year. The graphics card is slightly overclocked with the Asus GPU Tweak 2 tool, just to get a little bit more performance in games. Like I said, been a solid system, could definitely use a few upgrades. This motherboard will actually support up to 128 gigs of DDR4, and if I wanted to run faster memory, if I remember correctly, I have to actually upgrade to an i7 if I wanted to run DDR4 2933 or whatever the higher clock speed memory is. The i5 will run up to 2666, which is pretty quick, and of course, if you know what you're doing, you can overclock your memory, but you run the risk of frying it because you're running at a different voltage or it's getting too hot. I would like to overclock the CPU a little bit, but I don't want to push it too hard where it's just running on air cooled, even though this cooler does seem to keep it relatively cool. And like I said, more RAM would be a much help, especially because I only have 16 gigs and I can easily use that. And I was also thinking eventually upgrading the motherboard and CPU, so maybe when I do that, I'll build another system with the i5 and this particular motherboard. But that is all for now. We will catch you next time.